Welcome back to a new episode of NH Unscripted. Yeah, we're like your honky cat kind of show here. That makes me your Elton John-like host, Ray Dudley. Yeah, coming to you from the honeymooner-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. You know the routine. I got my Nehru jacket on, my bell-bottom pants, my platform shoes. Your job is to kick back on the waterbed, light the incense, fire up that lava lamp, and just sit back and enjoy. Yeah, baby. 1450 AM on your Sony Walkmans, Sony Work Person. 103.9 FM in Concord. Yeah, 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. Yeah, baby, we got a hot one for you today. Oh, I need to thank my sponsor. I am so happy, and I mean this sincerely, and so proud to have the law offices of Shaheen Gordon as the sponsor of this show. I am absolutely astounded every time we have one of their attorneys in, and you would think it's going to be one of the most mundane subjects. They just blow me out of the water. We did immigration law last week. Fantastic. I thought there couldn't be anything. Of course, again, timing's everything, right? The day we live in is just insane. But ShaheenGordon.com is their URL, and I am telling you, you got to go out there. You got to go out there. Their byline for us is because everyone should know a good lawyer. And you folks know that I have hammered this. You've been on this earth long enough. Either you or someone you know or love is going to need an attorney sooner or later. We are such a litigious society lately. It's just insane. But lately, hey, you got one of the things that I was out there the other day looking at their website, and they specialize, one of their specialties is personal liability. I mean, dog bites. I mean, come on. I know that could be just kind of a mundane subject itself, but they do it. And look, there's a lot of folks out there with some crazy dogs. What can I say? ShaheenGordon.com, 603-614-5560, 603-614-5560. Write it down. Put it on your fridge. Put it with your legal papers. All right. Thank you to ShaheenGordon.com. Well, speaking of timing, I have in the studio today Deanna Hoying. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well.
We're ready. We're ready to go.
We are.
Got Elton John, and I'm going to bring in Peter Frampton to the 1970s mix here. There we go.
Yes.
Maybe a little Rush. We'll throw it in there.
Do it. Yeah. Absolutely. You're welcome to do it anytime. Deanna, you're part of the organization Arts for NH. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, I'm a board member.
You are. Tell us a little bit because we are going to get deep here pretty soon. Tell us a little bit about the organization, what it does, its impact on New Hampshire and all of that, if you would.
Sure. Arts for NH is really an advocacy organization across the state to really advocate for arts in the state in all forms, in rural communities and metropolitan communities, making sure that everybody has a voice at the table and that we hear the vastness of, for a tiny state that we are, we've got an amazing arts culture here. And so we are here to advocate on behalf of the sector.
So break that down for us. What does that mean? What when you say you advocate?
Really, it's getting people the information. It's finding out what's happening at the State House, understanding how that impacts all levels of arts organizations across the state, and then helping them get some tools together for grassroots efforts to make sure that their legislators hear from them about how they feel about the importance of the arts in their community.
So would you consider yourself a political arm?
No, I mean, politics aside, because we're nonpartisan. Yeah. I mean, it's really a culture of the state issue, and I think that impacts all sides. I think we all benefit from a robust arts community where we have access to great art, great acts, great painting, great opportunities to create yourself. We've got some amazing community music schools across the state. They're doing great work for kids and adults. So it's really about making sure that everyone has access, and it is not a party issue. It is everyone has access.
Yeah, I think people forget basically how much arts in this state, how vibrant it is, a community. To some folks, I'm guessing it just kind of is an underground kind of thing. but it is just blowing up.
Yeah.
You know, we've got the film festival out in Portsmouth, and we used to, I don't know if they still do it, Snob. Does that still come to Red River? That's somewhere north of Boston. They have that film festival there that comes up here to Red River. Then you've got all of these, like the Bank of New Hampshire and the CCA, and my goodness, it just goes on and on. That doesn't include all of the other summertime theaters like Weather Vane and you know, Interlakes and Winnipesaukee and all of those.
That's right.
And then break down even further, you've got the community theater things. There's hundreds and hundreds of and that's performing arts. That's not even like...
Right, we haven't even talked about visual arts.
Right.
I know, and there's a lot of... Yes, I know. It is astounding how much arts and culture impact everybody, even if you don't think that it does. It does, you know. It's when you think about artists... And those who create. I mean, we're really talking about the creative economy.
Yeah.
So if you think arts don't impact you, well, one, you know, turn off that music you're listening to because it was created by musicians and artists. And of course, there's also all the other jobs that go with making the arts happen. You know, I was in opera world for a long time. I am currently the executive director of Symphony New Hampshire, but you know, when you're in the opera world, you say every job is important, from the person who's making the costume to the person that pulls the rope, that raises the curtain, because guess what? If they don't do their job, your artist doesn't have anything on and you don't see them because the curtain didn't go up.
Right.
So it's not just the actual creatives themselves, it's all the industries around them. And then even a further circle from that, all the businesses that benefit from active theaters. You know, that restaurant that's right down the street that's decided to stay open a little bit later because they know when that crowd lets out from that sold out show at that theater, they're all going to come in and buy food.
Correct.
And so that's, you know, these are all these other things. And I think one of the things that, you know, when the pandemic first hit, and I think what was really recognized is Broadway in particular, and how all these other industries, all these other businesses were impacted when all of a sudden you had no theater goers.
That stone in the pond.
That's right, that ripple that goes out. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And the same is true here. You know, we have thousands of people employed by the creative economy, and then another how many tens of thousands of people that benefit from having these vibrant places in their state where people come. And we often forget about cultural tourism. We talk about tourism a lot, which again, we have an amazing state for just the beauty of every possible geography we have in this little state. But we have cultural tourists come too, who want to come and see the latest show or their favorite act or their favorite painter or their favorite author or any of these other things that happen to be here. And then they're going to stay here. They're going to play here. They're going to look at this place as someplace they want to come back to. I mean, there are all those things that happen because they came here to see something unique that we have here.
Yeah. Before we get too deep, but please give us the URL for Arts for NH.
Artsfornh.org.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, arts number 4 nh.org. Yeah.
When an organization, maybe I shouldn't even put it on that level, an organization, because it makes it sound like an artist is going to have to be a part of some group or something. But what's the typical creative person who comes to you? Is it more film? Is it more stage? Is it more pottery? Is it more jewelry? Who's more likely to contact you?
You know, it's all over the map. We have so many different individual artists, because that's the thing. You know, we talk about organizations, but there are individual artists. When you look at, a League of New Hampshire Craftsmen is a very good example, which, you know, obviously curates juried artists, but these are individual artists, you know, doing their craft. So it's really across the board of people who want to know more about how they can advocate for arts in their community. I mean, we literally have just about everything and anything that's involved with us, and understanding that this is a culture. And we talk about the creative economy. You know, it is an economy. I think we often forget, or we think about nonprofits, not even just arts. Right. Nonprofits as not being part of the business sector, and we're just part of the nonprofit business sector. Yeah. So we employ people, we pay taxes, we do all the things you do in any other business. It makes money for the state.
Yeah. Yes. What would be the the most common reason someone contacts you? What are they looking for initially?
They're really looking for those talking points. It's like, okay, I'm going to reach out to my representative and I want to know concisely what are the things I need to talk about. What are those points, whether it's an economic issue, whether it's a regional issue, if it's an impact issue, what are those things that I can take to my representative, my senator, my local congressperson? That's what they want to know.
Okay, hang on there because there's something deep there that I want to get involved in here. All right, we got to take a break. Yes, we do, my sweet Lord. I am your George Harrison-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the YMCA-like conditions of the WKXL studios in Concord. You can smell the pool chlorine from here. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM. That's Concord. 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. We will be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted, you lucky listeners. We are just one toke over the line, sweet Jesus. I am your brewer and Shipley-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Gong Show-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. And no, I am not the unknown comic. 1450 AM, 103.9. That's for all the old folks. 103.9 FM in Concord. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. Deanna Hoying from Arts for NH is in the house. We are talking all things arts. When I asked you what people would come to you for, what are they seeking out? You said that they want information they can contact their representative in the State House. That was not where I thought you would go with that. I thought you might say, oh, they're looking for money. They want to know how they can get a grant. They might want, but you went straight to the government.
Yeah.
Why is that? What is that component?
Well, I think a lot of it right now is the arts are under fire right now as far as the state government goes. We're very concerned about what we're hearing, that certainly what came out of the House and now it's coming out of Senate Finance to not only defund the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts to $1, but eliminate it statutorily from being a government entity. And of course, we know if you eliminate something statutorily, it makes it much, much more difficult to bring it back down the road if we decide. And we are, by the way, the only state that is considering this right now in the country. Every state is having the conversations we're all having about. We know budgets are tight. We know that the federal money that we got for COVID relief and all those things that we were able to use for recovery, those sources are all gone. But all states are having these conversations about tightening budgets, but nobody's having the conversation about completely eliminating their state arts council. Except us. I know.
I had to take a deep breath there for a second. How did we get here? How did arts get so involved and commingled with government that we've gotten to this point where a simple statement, by the way, I will say I did sign the petition. I did send in my letter to my representative.
I love it.
Yes.
Yay. I love it.
And we'll get into why that's important in a minute or two. But how did this commingling come about? You would kind of think that most businesses, creatives being business, would either survive or not on their own. Either it's a good business plan or it's not. What's happening there that we've gotten to this point?
It's a good question, and I don't know if I have a logical answer, because I think some of the reasons behind it may not be as logical as we'd like them to be. I mean, we think about the investment in arts and culture, which has been done nationally and statewide for many, many years. In fact, the Arts Council is this year celebrating 60 years. So, I mean, this is not a trivial thing. This is not, we just started this yesterday and we need support. This has been 60 years, 1965. And even if you think about budgetarily right now, it's an average of about 73 cents per person in New Hampshire that the state spends on behalf of the arts. It's 0.06 it's just a little over half of 1% of the entire state budget that we're talking about. So it's a tiny, tiny amount. And yet the money that the State Arts Council provides to all kinds of organizations, some through their Public Value Partners program, which is a very strongly vetted program. We can talk about that in a minute, but also to individual artists, to folk artists, to arts and health. I mean, they leverage this very, very small budget, and it has such a huge impact across the sector, not just, again, for larger organizations. When you think about, the Courier and the Capital Center for the Arts, or my own organization, Symphony New Hampshire, but smaller organizations like Theater Kapow, organizations out in the Monadnock region, or organizations up in Coos County. I mean, they support all kinds of organizations at lots of different levels. And so what's nice is that because particularly Public Value Partners, they are so rigorously vetted. It's public money, right? It's important that you know what your money is going to. So there's a very rigorous process to become one of these Public Value Partners. You can leverage that with other funders, whether it be individual donors, foundation sponsors, because they know, and this will show my age, you get the good housekeeping seal of approval here, right?
Right.
That's what it means, is that if you've gone through this process, they know that the state has vetted your organization in such a way that it allows them to have a comfort level with their donors to say, listen, we're going to support this group because we know that they are on the up and up. We know the work they do. We know they've been vetted by the state. And we're going to support them because of all that. It just helps with that type of leverage. So it's not just the direct dollars. It's also those other indirect sources that you get because you have this essentially state seal of approval.
I don't get what percentage did you say it was of the budget?
0.06, so just a little over 0.5% at its current level.
Somebody help me out here, because who thought that something that, I'm going to call it minute in the budget, that's the thing they need to cut? As though there's so much waste in 0.06% that, oh my God, there's plenty of fat we can cut off that. What jackass thought that was the place to go of all of the things they could look at out there?
Yeah, I know.
Maybe we need to back up. For folks who don't know, the budget's been cut. I mean, maybe we should start there. Right. What is going on, by the way, Deanna?
So the House basically recommended they were going to defund the State Arts Council and remove it statutorily from existence. So I call it the Salt the Earth campaign. I'm a gardener, so you're going to pull up the weed and then you're going to salt the earth so nothing can grow there again.
Yeah.
Then it moved over to the Senate. And, we had some hopes that maybe the Senate would think a little differently. Again, it's such a tiny, tiny percent of the government, and the return that you get for this investment is fantastic. Nope. The Senate Finance Committee also recommended that they defund it to $1.
On what basis?
I don't know. They just said that what they want to do is they want to turn it into a voluntary group. They don't want, I know it's very weird because somehow they think that they're going to be able to still get possible federal dollars because, you get money from the National Endowment for the Arts.
Yeah.
You can maybe get a waiver because it's usually you have to have a 1-to-1 match for federal dollars. It's not clear how that works. And I know that there are some other organizations that work that way. But the Arts Council has never worked that way. And to think somehow you're going to just turn it into a voluntary organization that allows it to raise its own money. And by the way, they're now then, if that's the case, going to be now raising money from the same groups that they're supposed to be supporting. You're going to be tacking on extra dollars so it's like taxing the arts to pay for the arts. What are we talking about here? I mean, it just makes no sense.
I'm so shocked. A political thing doesn't make sense.
I know. What are we doing?
I'm going to get so in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not even talking 1% of the budget.
No.
I mean, that's a disgrace. Let's put it out there. That's a disgrace.
It is. And any of these conversations we're having about defunding, eliminating, I mean, it literally kills the State Arts Council. And you're shooting yourself in the foot.
The level of ignorance here is just beyond belief.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that, there were petitions out there. There were letters that people could send in. There were people who went to the actual political meetings and stuff. And yet they still hammered on this poor little subject. They've already done away with the film kind of branch.
Yeah, they did that a couple of years ago.
No
yeah,
kidding.
I know. And again, another one of those things that geez, look at half of the movies that are out there now, and look at the states that are, look at, the Georgia peach that shows up on every Marvel movie.
Right.
I'm thinking, really, and again, we love our geography here. You can't tell me that we can't make great films here.
There are people who come here for the geography.
Of course they do. Why not? Yeah, I know. It is a very short-sighted view of what's possible.
This subject's going to give me an aneurysm. I am telling you. This is just blind craziness.
Yeah.
Who? I don't even know where to start here. I mean,
what?
So where are we in the process now? What's about to happen? What can happen? What can people do?
So right now, Senate Finance is still working through their budget process, and they will make a recommendation. And they've had their hearing last week that included the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, under which the Arts Council falls. So this is what they've made. There were a couple of amendments that other senators tried to make to maybe save the Arts Council or find other ways to fund it. Both of those were voted down. So ultimately, then it all moves over to the Senate to decide. Now, there are other possibilities. So there are possibilities that a senator could still do a floor amendment at the full Senate to restore the Arts Council. In that case, I would say contact your local senator about how you feel about the importance of arts and culture in New Hampshire and in your community and how it impacts you personally. Those would be the big thing. And then once it goes to the Senate and they vote on it, then it'll go to the governor. So you can talk to her too.
All right, we're putting a pin in it right there just for a moment. We got to pay some bills. Hang on. I hear you knocking. Yeah, that makes me your Dave Edmonds-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Honeymooners-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. 101.9 FM on your Sony Walkmans for the beautiful folks in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. We're talking the arts or potential loss of it. Yeah, you heard that. Deanna Hoying's in the house. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted, where we are asking, does anybody really know what time it is? I am your Chicago-like host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from deep within the bunkers of the WKXL studios in Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios. Yeah, I still got mine. 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. We are talking the arts, or, depending on how you look at it, the potential loss of some of those arts. Deanna Hoying is in the house from Arts for NH. Deanna, we were talking about the impact. I don't think most people kind of understand. You pay a $25 ticket to see a play or a show, and you forget about it.
Right.
You don't even realize what kind of pool of money that goes into or ends up in. What is the potential impact of, say, pulling funding from the state or the town or city or whatever?
Right. Well, there are a lot of things that can impact. Certainly, we all have to then go find money to replace that, because that is part of our budgets, and we do count on it every year. And depending on the size of your organization, at most you can get $15,000. That's kind of the top cap for the money from the Arts Council. So we all have to go find whatever your funding is. And that can be a tricky thing depending on where you are in the state. If you're in a more metropolitan area, maybe it still means your team has to go find extra money.
15 grand's not a lot of money.
It isn't, but you'd be surprised how hard it is to find it. And, it really is. So you have to go find new money. And then, when we think about when we buy a ticket, we think, well, that pays for everything, right? It doesn't.
Right.
It pays for maybe a third of the actual costs of doing a lot of shows. And certainly for my organization, that ticket, it's about a third, maybe 40%. Everything else is covered through grants from, obviously, the Arts Council, from other foundations, from individual donors, sponsors, all those things. So we have to raise a lot of money because it costs a lot.
I was down at the Palace Theater a couple of weekends ago, and when you go into this room they have a wall of donors. That's how many people it takes to help keep that thing afloat.
It does. It does.
It's not
And
just
you
ticket
get
money.
world class. And the thing is, we're getting world class arts here. The shows that you're seeing all over the place, the kind of art that's hanging up here, the kind of authors we get through. I mean, it's just astounding what we have that comes through our state. And it does cost money to do. And that's what we are raising the money to do it. And if you think about, we often think about arts as being kind of one thing, and it's not. It's a lot of things. It's yes, visual, it's performing, it's mixed media, from hobbyists to professionals, it's venues and galleries and programming organizations, it's arts education in the schools, it's our community music schools.
It's dance.
Dance, it's theater, it's so many things. It covers so many things. And where Symphony New Hampshire's, our home base is Nashua, and where I work, I literally look out on a courtyard that has 3 sculptures from the Sculpture Symposium, which is, I think, one of its kind in the country. It's the National Sculpture Symposium.
There was one.
Yeah, symposium, where they bring in sculptors from all over the world to create 2, 3, 4 sculptures per year, and they are all over Nashua. I mean, there's a whole walking trail. You can go see all these amazing sculptures that have been done over the. I know.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, I mean, go see the sculpture tour. It's amazing. In fact, they're working on the next ones right now. It's phenomenal. These kinds of things that we have here in the state. But, we also think that we talked a little bit earlier about, you drop the pebble in the pond, and that's going to see the show or going to the art gallery, or you're doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
But then there are all these other things that rely on it. So when we think about, these kinds of numbers, in 2022, which is the latest numbers we have, the arts sector, the creative economy, accounted for $3.4 billion economic activity in the state. I mean, think about that, 3.4 billion with a B, for an investment of maybe $1.5 million. I would take that ROI any day of the week if someone said, if you invest $1 million, we're gonna give you 3.4 billion in return. I'd say yes, please.
Yeah, no.
So I mean, it is a driver, and the thing is, we also just know that if you look at struggling downtowns, And Concord was not immune for this. So you think about Concord before the renovation of the Cap Center. We'll just use that as an example, right?
Yes.
You create this new space, performance space, venue, gallery, whatever it is, that thing that brings people to downtown. Now, all of a sudden, we want more things downtown. We want to be able to shop. We want to be able to eat. We want to be able to do all these things. And you look at Main Street today versus maybe Main Street of the 90s, it's not the same place.
Correct.
And I'm not saying that Cap Center is the only thing. I mean, there's so many awesome things in Concord to be doing. And again, I live in Manchester, and you think about the Palace and the Rex Theater down there and the impact they have. Think about Portsmouth and the Music Hall and all these great venues all over the state. North Country. We have a project coming up I'll be up in New London tonight doing a project with them.
What?
I know. We're doing Annie Get Your Gun this week with them. It's going to be super fun. But, and when you mentioned Weather Vane earlier in Lake Winnipesaukee Playhouse, and you think about all the colonial theaters, these have all created atmospheres around them that people go, yes, they go to the theater, but then they do all the other things that are there. So it is a huge impact, and it can turn around a city's well-being. And even if you think about just us, personal connection, we know that has gone by the wayside for a lot of people. They feel very isolated. There's a loneliness. I like to think that when people come to see the arts, we're one of the last few places where we gather, that it does not matter that your seatmate may share a different ideology,
that's a great point,
a different economic view, whatever it is. We're in there sharing something together.
Yeah.
And it is a great unifier that we all can come together in some capacity, because that experience is never to be recreated again. I mean, live arts, anything can and will happen, literally. And even if we played the same thing every night for a week, it's going to be different every night because we're human beings, right?
Right.
And that audience is different. The energy of the audience, the energy of whatever you're seeing on stage, whether it's a theater production, a dance production, an opera production, a musical, a symphony, that energy and that connection that you have to those people in that audience is so unique to the arts. It really, to me, is one of those last places where everyone can come in, and we do not care what your ideology is. If you're there to enjoy what we're doing, wonderful. Welcome. Please come in, and don't feel like you have to believe a certain thing to go and enjoy the arts. They are for everyone. And that is really my message, I guess, for what the Arts Council represents and this little bit of money with the state. It's about access. It's about giving everyone the opportunity to access the arts in wherever they are and however they want to access them.
Yeah, Concord is a really good example of that. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, and we if you talk about arts, our minds tend to typically go like Portsmouth, right? We kind of think of that as a hub. But Concord is beginning to morph a lot. I was looking at your board members, and I know a lot of those people like Sal Prizio and Andrew Pernard. And, the impact, a lot of folks don't understand certain things. So we lost the Anna Carrico Theater. We lost the Hatbox Theater. And folks don't know the impact that has on small community theater groups that needed those little houses.
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, they got to go out and try to find not just funding, but a venue,
just
to
space.
Go play. Yes,
just space.
Yeah. And so, kudos to Concord at least for trying to revive some of the. I don't know what's going to happen if there's no arm here to kind of help them out a bit, but the revival that's starting to happen there is very impressive. There's a new restaurant coming into town called Arts Alley. I'm going to be having
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Right next to the Bank of New Hampshire stage.
That's right. I mean, it took bucks.
Yeah.
They had to tear things down and rebuild things right next to the Bank of New Hampshire. I mean, people forget that we get so myopic, or we just see what's in our own little world, and we really do forget what's happening outside of our little worlds. I want to ask you if there are any heroes involved here. Are there people who are really, besides yourself,
thank you,
but who are forwarding, who are in the front of this, trying to carry this forward? I mean, we say contact your rep. Yeah, I don't have a clue if my rep even gives one whit about whether anything ever takes place. Now, if they're not careful, we could end up like Detroit or Baltimore, just oh man! There I am.
We'll get to that, right?
The old man's on a rant. Hang on, I'm fired up. Oh, you are listening to NH Unscripted. Yeah, we're your Judy in disguise. I am your. Wait, that's not right. I'm going to leave that right there. I am your host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Taj Mahal-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. We're talking deep now about the arts. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted. Yeah, baby. Well, all I got is this photograph. I am your Ringo Starr-like host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from the dating game-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. Happy to be out of bed today, I'll tell you that. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL, and should you happen to wake up in the middle of the night and you're warming up your milk and have some cookies and you just need a friend, go out to NHRadio.com. You can find archives of this show plus all the other great programs that take place here, as well as there's a button you can click. I know, we got to click, us old people. We got to learn that stuff. You can click to listen to this show live every Wednesday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m., but there's a lot of other stuff out here live as well. Go out there, take a visit, NHTalkRadio.com. Well, we are deep in the weeds here. Rightfully so. Deanna Hoying's in the house, and we are talking about the arts. I don't want to call it funding the arts because it's not quite right, but the impact of helping the arts. Let's put it that way. Deanna, I had asked you off air about, are there any people who stand out in your mind besides Arts for New Hampshire, and Arts for NH, who are kind of in the forefront of this thing that, we need to just give them kudos, you know, and make sure they get recognized for the bravery of trying to save a 0.06% of the budget. My God, they probably waste that on paper. I cannot believe I even have to ask that question. But go ahead. Is there anybody else in your mind who's the hero to this thing?
Well, obviously, my fellow board members on Arts for NH, you know, we're out talking in our communities. We're all having these kinds of conversations. We're all making ourselves as available as we can be, and we're all volunteers. I mean, we all run other arts organizations. Obviously, our board chair Sal Pricio runs the Capitol Center for the Arts. Andrew Pernard, who's on our board, was Hatbox Theater, but he's obviously a wonderful magician and storyteller, and he's out doing some great work.
He does.
Carrie Cahoon, who's with Theater Kapow, and Ethan Paulini, who's with Weather Vane Theater, and we have some new folks. Kate Saunders just joined us, who's the new head of the New Hampshire League of New Hampshire Craftsmen, and Gemma Soldati, who's a wonderful artist in her own right, and so they are all fantastic. I mean, we don't do any of this by ourselves. This is a group effort, and I would say the members of the Arts Council themselves, who are volunteers. Mary McLaughlin, who's their board chair, is out talking to everybody, and the counselors are out talking to everybody, and of course the staff of the Arts Council, who I'm sure are a little blindsided by all of this and helping us figure out how we can best help them. Because obviously, if you have an all volunteer group, boy, that, we're going to lose some of the great people that help us. And it's not just about administrating the grants.
Yeah.
They're also involved in other parts of the community. We have a huge arts and health sector that is, I think, in the last, I would say, decade or so, people are really starting to understand how important arts are in your overall well-being and your health. And you see hospitals and hospice and senior facilities investing in art therapy and music therapy and all these things that help people with whatever it is they have. If they have, past trauma, if they have, any kind of cognitive thing. I mean, we know these stories. We know what the research is and around this. And we also even have a company called Safe Haven Ballet in Portsmouth that is ballet that is specifically for people who have had some kind of physical trauma. I mean, it's phenomenal. I know. Look them up. Safe Haven Ballet. They're amazing. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's happening in New Hampshire. And I think we forget all this work that's being done just in that sector. I mean, we're not even talking about all the rest of it. So, so they're, to me, those are our heroes. And I will say on the Senate Finance, I have to thank Senator Rosenwald, Senator Waters, and Senator Ennis, who all three disagreed with what was being proposed by the Finance Committee. Unfortunately, they were outvoted. I think it ended up being 5-3. But in fact, all three of them are trying to think about how can we save the Arts Council. So I think it's important that, don't give up. Continue to contact your legislators and think about it more locally. If they're your neighbor, go talk to them. Some of our Arts for NH folks, he's like, oh yeah, that person lives across the street from me. I'm going to go talk to them. And they did.
Wow.
That arts, I mean, that's the one thing about New Hampshire that's amazing. It is a citizens legislator. I mean, don't we have the largest one in the state for our size? So these are people these are people you run into at the grocery store, the coffee shop, or wherever. You might even run into them at your local your arts event. Talk to them. Talk to them about how important it is for you in your life, what it's meant to you, what it's meant to your family. Maybe you have a grandparent that needed that help when they were having some cognitive decline and they had some music or art therapy that helped them. Or you yourself, maybe during COVID. How much of us were glued to anything streaming, music, anything new? We needed the arts to get through that. So we can't abandon them now. Yeah. We're all still in recovery from that. It's still not really over for a lot of us because we're still having to find new audiences because there are some audiences we lost for any number of reasons.
No kidding.
And so that means finding new audiences, and finding new audiences costs more money than keeping the audience you have. Yeah. So that's it. It's still costing money, and people are squeezed. Let's face it. We know that's
the problem.
Discretionary spending. We know people are feeling it all over the place. So, and we're feeling it too. So this is why having this little stream of money is so important to us in the long run, because it does help leverage other things.
Yeah.
And what it says, even just morale, if the state is basically saying we don't care enough to give you 0.06% of our budget, even though we know this is what we get in return, that sends a very different message. And I do think what will happen is we will see smaller arts organizations in particular fold, because they just simply can't manage trying to find that extra money to come up with in such short notice to keep their operations running. And that's what we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose these companies. That is the fabric of this state.
It's funny. I am guilty of being myopic, even though I'm invested in the arts in New Hampshire. I forget, I go out to like some of the trade shows or some of the fairs and stuff, and the innovation of some of these people is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I think, I never even knew that existed as a field of arts, of creativity. I'm fascinated by some of the things people come up with. And to think that, you could potentially lose that kind of stuff. Everybody kind of wants to grow. They would like their little business to grow.
Yeah.
And to think that we could lose those simple people who are just trying to just release their creativity out into the atmosphere here. I just find that hard to believe. I mean, they probably spend more money on the paper towels in the State House. What is wrong with these people?
I know.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, and then if you think, too, about, we want to draw business in,
yes,
too, right? You want to have, how many conversations have I heard very recently about needing younger workers, younger families, younger people in this state. And when you're bringing people in, it's not just about work, but, how are the schools? How is transportation? Where am I going to live? And by the way, what am I going to do while I'm here, while I live here? I mean, when I've moved around a lot, every place my family and I have looked at, that's one of the first things we look at is what is the arts and culture of this community, of this city, of this state. And if we want to bring in more business to the state, you have to have a culture that people want to stay here and do the things we can do in this state. And it's not only one thing, it's lots of things. So yes, it's important to support all of our outdoor things because we have some amazing things outdoors, but we're not skiing, swimming, hiking 24/7. We also want to, I want to also say, let's go and see that local play. Let's go and see that art gallery. Let's go and support one of our historical sites. Let's go see the Robert Frost Farm or go see the Canterbury Shaker Village. I mean, there are so many cool things in this state that are so uniquely New Hampshire. Let's not lose those by having this short-sighted notion that somehow saving a little over $1 million is going to have the kind of impact we think it's going to have on the budget when it really could detrimentally impact so many arts organizations by not having it.
I'm so glad you brought up kids. It's used, it's for the children. With that, I hear that so often it makes me sick. But the truth is, I would much rather our children be introduced to the arts than to some other stupid. Don't even get me. Okay, but I keep thinking about these busloads of kids who come down to the Capitol Center for the Arts because we bring in some show. Well, I mean, think about the introduction. It might be some child's first time ever seeing something live on stage.
That's right. First time even in a theater. We just had our Link Up concert, which is our education concert in Nashua. We do every year for our Nashua's third graders for free. Listening to those 700 kids play the recorders with the orchestra, I can't tell you anything that makes me happier than seeing that and hearing that.
Deanna, please give me your URL one more time.
artsfornh.org. That's ARTS, the number 4, NH.org.
There you go. That's it. That's NH Unscripted right there, baby. Sooner or later, love is going to get you. Yeah, I'm your grassroots-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Twilight Zone digs of the WKXL studios in Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM on your transistor radios, 101.9 FM for the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful souls in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. Deanna Hoying was in the house, lighting me on fire. All right, I gotta go calm down.